America versus David Taylor.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Sarah Cohen appearing on behalf of the United States.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Scott Rosenblum appearing for Pastor David Taylor.
Okay, good afternoon. Mr. Taylor, can you please approach and state your name for the record?
David Taylor.
Okay, thank you. Today is the date set and time for an arraignment and a detention hearing. Let's do the arraignment first. Mr. Taylor, did you get a copy of the indictment?
Yes.
Okay, you need to speak in the microphone.
Yes,
Okay.
Your Honor.
Okay. I do have in front of me an acknowledgement, and it's signed by you and your lawyer. Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And this document states what you have been charged with and the maximum penalties you could face if you are convicted or plead guilty. You've been charged in this indictment with count 1, conspiracy to commit forced labor in violation of 18 U.S.C. section 1594. That carries a potential maximum penalty of 20 years imprisonment and a fine of up to $250,000. Counts 2 through 9 charge you with a violation of 18 U.S.C. section 1589, which is forced labor. Each of those counts carries a potential maximum penalty of 20 years imprisonment and a fine of up to $250,000 on each count. You've also been charged in count 10 of this indictment with conspiracy to commit money laundering in violation of 18 U.S.C. section 1956. That also carries a potential maximum penalty of 20 years imprisonment, a fine of up to $500,000, or twice the value of the properties involved in the money sentences if you are convicted of more than one count. Mr. Taylor, do you understand what you've been charged with in this indictment and the maximum penalties you could face?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Counsel, are you ready to enter a plea?
Yes, Your Honor. We'll waive the formal reading of the indictment and enter a plea of not guilty to each count.
Okay. I will enter a plea of not guilty on each count, and the record will reflect that Mr. Taylor has now been arraigned on the indictment. So the next matter is the detention hearing. And before the government starts its proffer, I just want to put on the record that in advance of this, I've reviewed not only the indictment, but I've also reviewed the memorandum that the government filed in support of detention. I've also reviewed defendant's memorandum in opposition to detention that have been filed, as well as obviously the reports of pretrial services, both from this district and the one that was prepared in the district where he made his initial appearance. So just so you know what I have reviewed, and I am also familiar with the proceedings with the co-defendant. So go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. With that recognition by the court, the government's argument today and factual proffer will be limited. As the court is well aware, Taylor is charged with forced labor, and Congress requires a presumption of detention. This presumption reflects Congress's substantive judgment that particular classes of offenders should ordinarily be detained prior to trial, such as David Taylor. It is the government's argument that the defendant will not meet its burden of production. However, if the court finds otherwise, the government's argument today will focus on 3142 factors, beginning with the nature and circumstances of the charged offenses. According to the evidence presented to the grand jury and reviewed by this court, David Taylor was a self-proclaimed general of a very unusual and brutal regime. And he was, according to the evidence, a serial sadist. And that is no exaggeration. For 11 years, in 4 states, over a decade, he terrorized and traumatized workers with violence, threats of violence, sleep deprivation, medical deprivation, and food deprivation. Contrary to the defense brief, victims and witnesses will testify that David Taylor, defendant number 2, Michelle Brannon, and others in the organization, including some who are sitting in the courtroom today, assaulted others in the organization, including, to date, at least one minor who has come forward. Specifically, witnesses thus far who have been willing to come forward have reported that approximately 10 members who have assaulted other people within the organization. Because of the nature of the public proceeding, the government is not going to identify those people at this time, but there are approximately 10, again, including some seated in this courtroom today. Victims and witnesses will also testify that they were deprived of food, sleep, and medical care. Their testimony is corroborated overwhelmingly by Taylor's orders and threats to his victims that have been documented. For the record, the government is going to place some of those threats directly from Taylor into the record, notably with the times. Beginning on just one at 12:26 a.m., Taylor texted an armor bearer. As the court knows, an armor bearer is Taylor's personal slave. He instructed the armor bearer as follows: "You'll have to raise $164,000 today." To clarify, the armor bearer was responsible for passing on that order to the workers. "Each hour you will fall behind, consequences will start. We will mess with the food. You will fast from the regular food or abstain for a while. Those who do not push in their calls individually and as a team with the right amount of people and closing numbers at 6 p.m., they don't eat dinner at all. They might get a snack before bed, but not much, and this regiment will go on every day for 21 days until they obey. Take away the food. Exclamation point, exclamation point. There will be other consequences. We must make them fast and pray." Another one at 3:55 a.m., Taylor texted the same armor bearer: "Those in the top 9 that don't do well will stay up and close and stay on top of the delinquents. Put the pressure on them for not having their time off. Nor food. They will fast." At 3:52 a.m. on another date, Taylor texted his armor bearer: "Let everyone know we have to raise at least $50,000 by 12 midnight if this happens. The top 9 and those who did well can rest, but the others who didn't will stay up until 4 a.m. and study notes, and they will wake up at 8 to 9. And if they don't do good the first 5 hours, they will not get lunch." On another date, 7:57 a.m., there is evidence of consequences when people are sleeping and are having a hard time waking up. He texts his armor bearer: "Pour water on everyone's faces that's halfway sleeping and not working. Wake them up now. My next level of judgment tomorrow is that it won't be just 4 a.m. It will be every hour you waste in the day will be added on past 4 a.m. In all capital letters, tell them all to stand now and you throw water on their faces." Later in the text, "You tell them I don't care about them being sick." On another date at 3:23 a.m., Taylor texted to his armor bearer: "I can't be kind to you letting you start later and sleep in. I can't be kind with none of you. You're all working until 4 a.m. Now, I don't care if you're tired. You've crossed the line. You're going to work all night and get up in the morning." In another text, Taylor texted a group of workers: "You're not going to bed tonight until you raise $33,000. And as the court knows, the $33,000 and all the other money that Taylor is insisting being raised is not for the benefit of the community. It is for the benefit of David Taylor and Michelle Brannon. On another date at 1:44 a.m., Taylor texted a group of workers in capital letters, point blank: "If you don't work, you can't eat." On another date, Taylor texted a group of workers, warning to the whole staff in capital letters: "If you don't work and learn closing like we told you, then you won't eat." There are more. They are in the brief, and there are more in evidence. In addition to the threats that are corroborated by victims and witnesses, FBI agents are now investigating even more disturbing evidence in addition to the forced labor. There is evidence now that Taylor coerced some female workers into providing masturbation videos and sexually explicit photographs to Taylor. The female members who have disclosed, and there are more in evidence. In addition to the threats that are corroborated by victims and witnesses, FBI agents are now investigating even more disturbing evidence in addition to the forced labor. There's evidence now that Taylor coerced some female workers into providing masturbation videos and sexually explicit photographs to Taylor. The female members who have disclosed this to the government to date explain that Taylor demanded this material, that they were fearful of disobeying him, and they felt they had no choice but to send Taylor what he demanded from them. In addition, minors have come forward to the FBI. They have been recently interviewed. They have corroborated the forced labor scheme, including physical assaults. They have reported their own psychological and physical abuse and their own trauma during their involvement in Taylor's organization.
By Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Okay.
Or instructed by Mr. Taylor. The serious nature and circumstances of the charged forced labor, as well as the newly developing evidence, as well as the money laundering detailed in the government's brief, unquestionably weigh in favor of detention. Moving on to the weight of the evidence, the danger Taylor poses is particularly insidious. Congress, of course, recognized this danger in designating forced labor as a presumption of detention case. But there's more than just forced labor. Taylor faces a strong incentive to flee, particularly because of the sentencing guidelines and the statutory maximum penalty. Putting aside the 20-year maximum penalty for a moment, the government's initial estimated calculation for the forced labor charges is 151 to 188 months, and his guideline range for money laundering is similar, 151 to 188 months. It's important that we all understand that forced labor is not just about physical assaults and physical abuse. It is about the psychological trauma and coercion that occurs. And this was happening on a daily basis for over a decade. So to remove David Taylor from the organization is not enough. The fear persists for his victims, not just because he's physically removed. The psychological fear and the psychological trauma continues. The history and characteristics of the defendant. He has no employment outside KOGGC. He does not have significant family or community ties to this district. And while it is true that he has no prior criminal convictions, he has admitted publicly and in messages that he used to be a gangster in his teenage years, very bad in shootouts, etc. So apparently, prior to this forced labor sinister organization that he decided to start, he was involved with violent behavior. And then it's important that the court recognizes that he doesn't have any criminal convictions because he was engaging in a criminal enterprise that was extraordinarily sealed for the past 12 years. In addition to the lack of legitimate ties to this district, the government's financial investigation, which importantly remains ongoing, establishes that Taylor has numerous sources of funds to flee, as detailed in our brief. In addition, the government has just recently learned that Taylor has another source of funds. So this is a source that is not identified in the government's brief. He has an additional cashback debit card account that currently has $12,195.10 in it. And he has an online savings account that has $130,910.23 in it. And that is as of today's date. If the court has any questions about access to funds or the seizure of funds, Adriana Didel, the chief of our office's Money Laundering and Asset Recovery Unit, is here to answer the court's questions.
Okay.
The government also pointed out in its brief that the funds will continue to grow based upon the conduct of people in the courtroom because they are actively soliciting additional funds. And the manner in which they are doing it is quite frightening. For example, in a broadcast recently, members of the organization stated, quote, "We're in a war. We're in a war, and it's time for you to decide if you're a warrior or you're not." Moving on to the nature and seriousness of the danger to any person or the community. In addition to the intimidating forced labor conspiracy that is discussed in great detail in the government's brief, as the government has noted, there's developing evidence that Taylor coerced women to provide him sexually explicit videos and pictures. His sexual predation alone makes him a danger to the community for several reasons. First, it is very apparent to investigators that Taylor has an excessive need for sexual gratification, and it will not be controlled with bond conditions. Because Taylor collected these sexually explicit materials electronically, this material may be in the possession of current members of the organization or former members, or may be stored by Taylor in unknown locations. Women remain fearful that Taylor or someone at his direction will distribute this very private, explicit, and sensitive material. As detailed in the government's brief, also, during Taylor's meetings and online broadcasts, he uses words like war and battle. He claims he's preparing soldiers. He calls himself a general. And he describes how he's training the end army. His members are entitled to protest, Your Honor. But as I speak here now, they're outside the courthouse. And that should be noted. They are carrying on their war message, even as I speak. It is important to note as well that one member of the organization who has been attending court proceedings did interfere with the government providing assistance to victims of this organization. Specifically, on August 27th, victim witness services were present in Tampa when the search warrant was executed. There were nonprofit organizations present as well. These were victim services personnel who were offering help to victims, food, medical care, a phone, whatever they needed. And there were victims who wanted the help. And a person within this organization, a high-level person, a person who admitted that he was number 3 in the organization, who is sitting in the courtroom today, came to that location and convinced those people to leave and not get help. That's the kind of organization that we're dealing with. In addition, Taylor himself and others at his direction have threatened, harassed, and stalked members, either at their indication that they wanted to leave the organization or after they left. Just recently, the government has received descriptions of people, from people, who want us to know the kind of harassing activity that occurs.
Einstein once said, "Everything should be made as simple as possible, but no simpler."
So there are people out there that are very concerned about David Taylor being released into the community and the kind of harassing and stalking that will occur by him or anyone at his direction. So given Taylor's reign of terror over his victims, his leadership role, his loyal following, and now his sexual exploitation of women, and his evangelizing of violence and obstruction and defiance of law enforcement, Taylor would clearly be a danger to the community if released. Moving on to the recommendation by pretrial services. Pretrial services recommended bond. So at this time, I'm going to explain why the bond conditions are absolutely and wholly inappropriate. With regard to the bond address, the Ocala House is a formal location of the forced labor. The North Carolina address is where David Taylor was arrested. Contrary to his statements to pretrial services in North Carolina, he has been living at that location for approximately 5 years. There's an individual referenced in the pretrial services report. I can state his name on the record if the court wishes, but for now,
Well, if it's stated in the pretrial services report, I think it's fine. Go ahead.
Thank you. Paul Adom, A-D-O-M.
Right.
Taylor has referred to him as floor manager and stated that he is responsible for driving everyone and keeping order. He runs an organization called Kingdom Restoration for All Nations, which is in Durham, North Carolina. Right. Taylor has directly next to the house where Taylor was arrested. Adom's organization and Taylor's organization have been financially entwined. And I can get into the details if the court wishes, but suffice it to say that there is money going back and forth. And that money has been going back and forth for many years. Adom was in Houston, Texas when the search warrants were executed on August 27th. He was there with his wife, and they had a room. So they are both members of the organization. Moving on to another individual, Alyssa Billow is also known as Alyssa K. She was interviewed on August 27th. She said that the Edgewick house is Paul's house. And she also stated to law enforcement that that house was used to house male members of the organization when they came to North Carolina. It's also important to note that an apartment nearby that address is leased under defendant number 2's name, and it has been used to house female members when they travel to North Carolina. And specifically, 2 members of the organization were staying at that nearby apartment. Regarding the defendant's son, like defendant 2's son, is a member of the organization. In fact, his son is listed as director in KOGGC documents. So he is a member as well. I referenced Alyssa Billow, also known as Alyssa K, and her statements regarding the address in North Carolina, but with regard to her having contact with KOGGC, she is a member of the organization as well. Specifically, she's been living with Taylor, and she's been instructing his workers in the manner described by the government today and in her brief. She serves Taylor, much like an armor bearer does, but she's female, so I will leave it at that. She also has control over Taylor's personal accounts and assets. Another individual in the courtroom, and also suggested by pretrial services to take care of David Taylor, is his armor bearer. As we describe in our briefing, an armor bearer is Taylor's 24/7 servant. And for the record, 2 other armor bearers are victims in counts 8 and 9 of the indictment. They do whatever Taylor orders them to do. That's their job, and that's what they've been trained to do. And this has included over the years everything, literally everything, including transporting women to have sex with David Taylor and to give the women Plan B contraceptives. Gwen also has knowledge of Taylor's accounts and assets, and he corresponds with other members daily on behalf of Taylor. Notably, as pointed out in the government's brief, but I'll highlight some additional inaccuracies in the pretrial services report. And these inaccuracies are the result of David Taylor's lies to pretrial services. He has never been an honest person. We know that from the criminal activity. But when faced with court proceedings and the serious nature of court proceedings, he couldn't be honest with pretrial services. He stated that he was living in St. Louis when he wasn't. He's been in North Carolina for many years. Daniel Gwynn has been Taylor's armor bearer, not merely a caretaker or a friend. Notably, David Taylor told pretrial services that he was with KOGGC for a specific amount of time, but as described in the government's brief, before KOGGC, Taylor ran JMMI, and he has run both of those organizations for much longer than the mere 8 years that he admitted to pretrial services. And notably, the only reason, I shouldn't say the only reason, one of the reasons he changed the name is because JMMI lost its nonprofit status. I'm not sure why David Taylor left out additional international travel. Of course, lacking a passport will prevent international travel, but again, just pointing out his dishonesty that he does not admit to all of his international travel. And of course, his financial disclosure is far from accurate based upon the sources of funds to flee that's highlighted in the government's brief, and notably the additional money that the government was notified of today. David Taylor told pretrial services that he merely had one personal checking account with a very minimal amount of money in it. But as described in the government's brief and today, David Taylor has access to a wide range of different funds. And as in any complicated and purposeful hiding of assets, there will be additional sources that the government has not yet located. And again, Adriana Didal can discuss that with the court if the court wishes. And the last thing to note for the record, as I'm sure this court is aware, is that although defendant number 2 is on bond, her condition imposed by Judge Berg was that she have absolutely no contact with any individuals, former or current, in the organization, and none of the funds can support her manner of living in any way. So that the recommendation of pretrial services in this case doesn't even match defendant number 2's bond conditions. Of course, it is the government's position, as discussed in the brief and today, that absolutely no condition of bond is appropriate in this case, and the defendant should be detained.
Thank you. Counsel.
Thank you. May it please the court, Your Honor. I'm trying to conditions are a combination of conditions that will satisfy this court that he's not a threat to leave, that he'll be here to defend himself, and he's not a danger to himself or to anyone else. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Does the government have any rebuttal? And I'm particularly interested in, if he were to be released on bond, where would he go, and would you be comfortable with any place that he might be going where he would not pose a danger?
The answer is unequivocally no. There has been no proposed address.
Well, there have been, Your Honor.
Well, I understand what's in the pretrial services report, okay?
And I provided the pretrial services officer with another address after our meeting today.
Okay.
If I had been allowed to finish my sentence, the sentence was going to be, there's been no proposed address in this district where David Taylor will live alone. And even if that was proposed, he has no money outside of the organization to fund that house. And because of all the reasons in the government's brief and the argument today, the government submits that even in the Eastern District of Michigan is a danger.
Because he is the leader.
Because he is the leader, because of all of the facts of his criminal activity, because of his overwhelming coercive and threatening and terrorizing behavior for over a decade. And I want to emphasize a couple of points and correct the record with regard to just a couple of things, Your Honor. First of all, the court understands this, but for purposes of the record, the organization has sought for decades money from individuals without informing those individuals the nature of this criminal organization. So the emphasis on the organization's reach to hundreds of thousands of people emphasizes the danger of that criminal organization and the danger of it continuing, because donors are not informed of the nature of this organization, the victimization that has occurred, and that the government submits remains occurring. Whether members admit that they're victims or not, they are victims of David Taylor and Michelle Brandt. I want to clarify for the record with regard to the number of people that the evidence currently shows have assaulted other members within the organization. If the government was unclear, I apologize, so I'm clarifying now. There are substantive counts in the indictment with regard to victims, and that number is as the defense counsel stated. The government's argument today is that the evidence thus far has established that approximately 10 members of the organization, including David Taylor and Michelle Brandt, have assaulted other individuals in the organization, including a minor that has come forward recently.
All right. Good afternoon, evening, Friday, wherever y'all are at. Getting started a little early today. We are going to have a guest on, Vanessa Johnson from Vanessa Johnson's channel. She's going to come on. We're just going to kind of keep it lighthearted tonight. We're just going to kind of analyze the case. I just got to call her here in a minute. And if y'all know Vanessa, she has another channel. She's an attorney. And she's just going to kind of come on, and we're just keep it lighthearted, all right? We're not going to go like too much crazy into shit, but more or less we're going to look at the case, things we talked about earlier, you know, how much David's possibly in with these lawyers. I mean, David has rights, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about tonight too, is that David has rights, all right? And a lot of you said, damn, there's an open and shut case right there. Well, in the end, David still has rights, everybody, okay? And so do we. Everybody's got rights. If you fucked up, you'd want the same amount of rights as David did, right? Except for combing your fucking hair. But anyways, we're going to get on here, and we're just going to kind of talk about it a little bit, because this case is pretty big. It's a historical case. A lot of eyes are watching it, I think, that we don't know. And it's going to change everything in the long run, I think. I really do think in the long run, this will change everything. Maybe not in our lifetime, right? But we are going to just look over basically David self-snitching, man. Self-snitching. It couldn't have happened to a better person. Let's see. All right. So if you guys have questions tonight too, feel free to ask them by all means. But let's keep it cool tonight, yeah? Keep it real. Let's get Vanessa on the phone. So she's been real nice to give us an hour of her time, which is really nice. So let's thank her when she gets here. And I just got off the phone with her too. I was just talking to her. And she's pretty much blown away by like the fact that David would self-snitch on himself like this. Gets here. And I just got off the phone with her too. I was just talking to her.
Hey.
She's pretty much. Can you turn the background down, Vanessa?
I did.
Okay,
Can
cool.
you hear me okay?
I sure can. Thank you for your time. Appreciate you today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, no kidding. So and a lot of people already know. Let's just get right into this. Coming from the outside, you're an attorney. I don't think I've ever really discussed your specialty. Maybe you can give us all a background real quick. Just like,
oh, sure. Yeah.
That'd be cool. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So I've been practicing, it's 27 years this year. And when I first started out, I was a defense attorney in Arkansas. I was a public defender right out of school. And then I moved to Michigan and I was a prosecutor there. And I was in the special victims unit. So I started specializing in sex crimes against children.
Okay.
So I did that for quite a few years and it was a really great experience. So ironically, it was in Detroit where, you know, the David Taylor case is, but it was I was a state prosecutor there.
Nice. Okay.
And then I always wanted to move to Florida because I'm actually from the Northeast, but, I moved around a lot and I just didn't like the North and the weather and all that. So I moved to Florida in 2005. So yes, I have taken 3 different bars because I had to take 3 different state bars. And then, so I've been in Florida since 2005.
Okay.
And when I came in 2005, I did prosecute for a year, but I didn't stay in sex crimes because I was a little bit just over it, it was just trying. And then I didn't really care for that office, the one in Tampa, and it was just very different. And so then I ended up just going into a different area of law, which I've been practicing. So, but I have, just that background of advocacy even before I went to law school. When I was an undergrad, I went to undergrad and got a psych degree, and I was really interested in cults, and I did my papers on specializing on that. Like I did one on Scientology and and religious cults. I know, and so now it's like full circle, like 35 years later. So it's been really interesting. So
I didn't know that. So
hi everybody.
So you actually wrote about cults as part of like your research.
Yeah, like I was so young.
Okay, cool.
I know.
Oh, awesome.
I know. And one of my professors, she was like, hey, I know I think it was a detective she was friends with. She's like, hey, do you want me to hook you up with him? And because he can help you out and all this. And, I was just young and dumb and I wish I took her up on it. And I was like, yeah, but I never did. And I was just busy with my life. And, but it is interesting that when I look back at it, I was like, wow, I was interested in it back then. But I've always been someone that has, just stood up for people that need to be protected and they don't have a voice or they're being mishandled and mistreated. And, I'm just that kind of person that, hey, I don't care if you don't like me. I'm not in it for a popularity contest. And I just want to do the right thing and I want to help people. And I love the fact, Rich, that what you're doing and how you've done this, because really, and I'm sure your audience knows, if it wasn't for you, then we wouldn't be here right now with this case.
No, I don't think so. I think it was all, I still give credit to everybody because everybody here gave their energy to this. Everybody here.
Yeah.
Even you, Vanessa.
Yeah.
Even you showing up today, like you're giving your energy towards this. No, this is, I always say, like, I think one man would have probably blown his fucking head off doing this. That's just me.
Yeah.
I really do.
No, that's true. It's good to have people. I mean, you obviously have an audience that helps you from, based upon the conversations we've had. You say that you have a lot of good friends and that's awesome that you have this community.
Yeah, it's been great. It really has. And it's been a ride because we all kind of are gathered by this unique situation of this cult, right? And we're all in it for a certain reason. We want to right this wrong. We really, really do. That's what I want to see. Right the wrong. Fix this.
Right. I know. We want justice.
That's it.
We want this.
That's
absolutely. And these victims need justice. And in the course of it too, because we're in it, right?
Yes.
We're in it right now. We're waiting for this justice to happen. And this is a pivotal time because the victims still need to be supported. They still need to be encouraged.
Absolutely.
And like you and I were talking today, just having that conversation with them. I talked to a lot of victims on different cases.
Yep.
They just really want to be heard, and they want to be heard by someone that believes them and encourages them and supports them.
Yep.
And that's really, really important to them.
Because they've been voiceless for so long, right?
Yeah.
They've been voiceless.
Stepped on,
shit on. They've been voiceless.
Absolutely. Yeah. Really bad.
Now we're full.
And really some disgusting stuff. I mean, obviously this is, and like you said, this is a landmark case. It is.
And now we're coming.
It really is.
Now you come full circle, right? Like here we are all meeting in this unique situation talking about this. You've done research on cults and now we come to David.
Yeah.
And I'm on page 45 of this because I think this is where it all broke open for David, that they found his digital footprint. First of all, as an attorney,
Yeah.
what would you think if you found this on your client, a digital footprint of him admitting to their crimes openly to himself?
I have never in my life had something like this drop into my lap. I can just imagine that the government is just ecstatic that they have this. Now, with that being said, and I'm not trying to take away from that,
Yeah.
any of that, because this is amazing that they have it, and this is gold. It's absolutely gold. But and you went through this transcript, and what the defense attorney, he popped off right away. He said, well, this is going back decades, but he was really focusing on one area when it was talking about his wife.
Yeah. Yeah.
That there's physical abuse to my wife that starts on page 45, but there's so much more: manipulation, controlling,
Yeah.
sexual sin, deceiving multiple women. That's not decades. Yeah, you've done it for decades, but that doesn't mean that it was decades ago.
Yeah.
So this is, for the government to have this, and I suspect they probably have a lot more than this. So a lot more is going to come out, and perhaps this is what they just chose to use at this particular hearing.
Like, let's go ahead and spoon feed this them a little bit and see how they take this. And this was the first day that the defense had also seen it.
Yeah. And it looks like at a subsequent hearing, that other one that was a couple weeks ago, what Ms. Cohen says is that they invited the attorneys to actually come into Detroit. Some of them are there, but some of them are not, right?
Yep.
One of them's in St. Louis. And so, because there's such an extensive amount of discovery, to come in here and look at this. And I'm not sure, and I don't want to, assume people know or don't know, but just in case people don't know, a lot of the discovery, they can't give it to David Taylor. So David Taylor can't just sit in his jail cell with the discovery.
Nope. It has to be
Right?
in a secure location. It's like that's
That's right.
under lock and key, pretty much.
Yeah.
To
Yeah, he can't have it.
to protect the victims. That's why.
That's right.
To
There's a
protect the
very,
victims.
very strict protective order, which is very appropriate here. They didn't even know the names of the victims, 1 through 8, until after his detention. So it was like at the end of October when they learned the names. So his attorneys can't feed him paper, or any tangible evidence. They have to talk to him. So throughout those transcripts, you see that where they're saying, Judge, this is going to take so long. It could take them months, but they have to actually read it.
Yeah.
Read the allegations, read those statements that were made by witnesses, by victims. They have to read it to the defendant, David Taylor, and then they have to prepare a defense. So it's not just the reading of it, then you process it, digest it. You got to get information from your client to start preparing their defense. And then they would have to go out and get evidence, subpoena evidence,
Yep.
Take statements or whatever. So this is a long process. So when you and I were talking earlier today, and the trial is set for November, I would be really surprised if it is going to go in November. I think it's going to get pushed out to next year.
109,000 pieces of evidence.
Yeah.
Right.
109,000.
And then there's what they found: 700 digital devices.
700 digital devices.
Mm-hmm. 200 of them I know for sure were iPhones, for sure.
Okay, they're going to have to go through all those.
Mhm. Yep.
That's crazy. Wow.
Not necessarily Oren, like he hasn't been charged with murder by the feds. I think it's safe to assume he didn't have people killed. Dude, we could be seeing some conspiracy charges. He might, dude, for all we know, David could have had fucking hits out on people that we know about. We don't know that. We don't know.
We don't know. We don't know the extent of those warrants. Remember when they searched all of those locations? We don't know that yet.
Yep. We don't.
Yeah. No, somebody asked if I had been following David since before the arrest. This is an interesting story. I'll tell it real quick. So I'm in Tampa, and a lot of and so my firm's downtown Tampa, and so some of the people that are in my office, they know that I have a podcast, and they know that I talk about these crazy people that claim to be pastors, that claim to operate these churches. So somebody had come in my office, I guess they had seen the news, and they go, hey, did you know about this cult leader? He just got arrested, and somebody here in Tampa. And I'm like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. And so then as the day went on, somebody else came in and said the same thing. I'm like, okay. And then I saw a friend of mine post on Facebook. I'm like, okay, you have my attention, everybody.
Yeah.
So then I looked it up. It was that same day that they got arrested. So that was August 27th. And so I knew it was a federal indictment. So I just assumed, because everybody was coming in my office and saying it was Tampa, I assumed it was Tampa that they were being indicted out of. And I was thinking, oh, that's cool, because the courthouse is just a couple blocks away. But then I found out later in the night that no, I found out more. So that's when I started looking into it, was because of that.
Because
that same day that he was arrested. I didn't know about it before.
Did it make a bigger deal to you that they were being brought up to Detroit than Tampa?
I was happy that it was going to Detroit, just because I worked there, and I know that there was that, this is my experience. I've been practicing here. I've been practicing in Detroit. I'm not gonna, bash anybody, but I just think that the level of decor and just the level of expertise, in my opinion, take it or leave it, it just seemed like it was just at a higher level in Detroit.
Okay.
So.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Do you have anything to say about the depositions? Did you watch those?
Oh yeah. So then of course I started, after I, became aware of this, then I started looking at stuff, and the depositions, my gosh. Yeah. So that was fun to watch. I started with David Taylor, and then I started watching Michelle. They're just both so arrogant, and that's what I do in my practice, is I take depositions all the time. And, you deal with people like that they're just reluctant. They refuse to answer questions responsibly, meaning a question specifically asked, they're not going to answer that what you're asking. They're going to go around it. They're going to make up their own question, and answer whatever they want, or they're going to try to hide facts. They're going to be evasive, all of that, playing the games. Excuse me, oh, can you repeat that? All of those little things that
tying
he was
up the
doing.
time, right?
Oh yeah, and trying to control it. Trying to control the game, right? And then the fun, and I don't know if everybody knows, but when you're in a deposition, there's no judge there, right? So you're recording it. If you have an objection, you just say it on the record, so it's preserved, and then you would bring it before a judge to rule on those. But there's nobody that's like a gatekeeper. So, and this happens, and I saw him do it. So when his attorneys would make an objection, like they think it's like, oh, he's saving the day, I don't have to answer. Yeah, you still got to answer. They're just making the objection, but you still got to answer the question.
Yeah.
And I noticed that a lot with him. I noticed that with people in general, when they're given testimony, they just act like, oh, this guy's working for me, I don't have to answer those questions, but they do. And just the whole gist of his responses, he's very arrogant. You could tell he was trying to hide something. And then coming to his videos, I was shocked that I'm sorry, Rich, say that again.
So you had never seen the deposition. He goes in, he's just a witness, but you as an attorney, you noticed right away, like, he was full of shit, basically. You're like, dude, this guy's lying clearly.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. After
Yeah.
See, people, not just us, are seeing this guy as a fraud. Okay.
Yep.
Just point that out there.
Yep. It's very clear to me.
Yeah.
And I don't think you have to be a lawyer to figure that out. Anybody, you can just look at somebody's demeanor. I mean,
Yeah.
right? We all have to do that in life.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what kind of situation you're in. You have to determine whether somebody's telling you the truth. And so it's pretty clear, especially people that were, because I didn't, I was looking at all this in piecemeal. Then I would go and I would look at one of his videos where he's preaching. I'm like, he's pretty loud.
Yeah.
And proud, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to his depo and he's acting like really docile and very, at times, trying to appear passive and appearing that he's very soft-spoken. And he wasn't. And it just, how the truth just, you can just tell what the truth is. It's just something inherently. And so it was pretty clear that he was not, he didn't seem credible at all to me.
No.
I'll say it like that.
That's for sure. I got a question. With these kind of like this kind of self-admission, what does it do for his defense?
Gives them a lot to, they have a lot of work to do, because these things are going to come in and the jury's going to see it. And though, and these things, the controlling, sexual sin, lifestyle of darkness, physical abuse, beating staff, these are the things that make up the charges against him. So it's an admission. They don't even need him on the stand, right? Because you all know that the government, they can't call him to the witness. It would be the witness stand. He would have to decide whether he's going to take the stand or not in his own defense. And he doesn't have to. They're probably going to tell him not to, but that's another thing. He probably will tell them, what he's going to do. But back to your question, this isn't going to look good for him. It's going to cause them they're going to have to come up with some rationale, some reasoning, and explain away all of this stuff. I think that part of what we saw in the transcript was when that one attorney said, hey, this was from decades ago. Well, and you know what? He was repenting. He was being sincere. So it should be, credited to him as if it was positive. They're going to spin it. That's the bottom line, right? They're going to spin it as if, he's a repentant guy. He knows how bad he was. He was at one time, but he repented. That's what this is. And I guess we have to see when those timestamps are, if that's something that the government has and is going to be able to produce.
Yeah, because I know they brought up the most recent text messages to himself too. So they're like, these weren't from, 5 or 10 years ago, Your Honor. These were from 2025, weeks prior to the raid.
Yeah.
And he's even saying that he's getting worse.
I know. Yeah, she said that. And I think that was smart for Ms. Cohen to bring that up. And she said, I have some others that I can share with you, Judge, from 2023 and 2024, but I'm going to share the ones that are more recent from 2025. So that means that those are the things that he's recording in 2025. So if he's repenting of it in 2025, I think a reasonable person can conclude that that relates to things that are happening in 2025. Because why would you be repenting in 2025 from things that you did, if this is ongoing, right? If he's been repenting all of this time, then that means that the sin is ongoing too.
Yeah. What do you, Sean Airness asked, what does Vanessa think about the protest and cult members claiming the FBI is lying?
Oh,
makes her case worse.
So going back to the cult members are the cult members, right? They're indoctrinated and they drank the Kool-Aid, they marinated in the Kool-Aid, they've been waterboarded in the Kool-Aid, and they're just in it for the long haul. And so that's what they're going to do, right? That's their job. This is it. This guy's being persecuted, and that their stance is going to be very similar to what's going on. And I don't know if you know about the Mooney cult and that woman that's in Korea. And that they're saying that she's being persecuted too. Well, you're not being persecuted for Christ. You're being prosecuted for crimes that you committed. So these people are just, and I think that what David Taylor probably did, we know this, right? That he prepared them. He said that they're going to come in here, and if the FBI comes in, you guys got to take up arms, you got to fight, all of that stuff, right? Your soldiers, I'm the general, things like that. So I think that he just, he prepared them for such a time as this. And so some of them are very susceptible, right? We've seen the resistance that they are very loyal, and they're going to protest. And they stir them up into a frenzy. And that's what the cult members do to each other, probably because that's what he did to them. Right? So, and they're just continuing on in that way. Can some break away? Yeah. Hopefully, if people open their eyes and ears, maybe one will come away, then the next. But it does seem like there's a lot. I remember seeing that on the news, that there was a ton of them out there with signs, and they were just out there protesting. And I heard that they even went into the court with the signs, which I don't understand how that happened, because that's a federal court. So that was very strange. I think we're going to see that with these hearings. It's going to still happen, and certainly at the time of the trial. I don't think that they're going to go away. I think they're always going to be there.
Oh, I know the judge has a list. He already wrote a list of who's allowed on the court during the trial, and it's a very small list from what I understand. He said, "You guys ain't coming in. Nope. I think they're going to have like an overflow setup, which is understandable.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yep.
It's going to be a strict set of rules. This judge ain't putting up with any crap.
That's good.
He's
You
made that
shouldn't.
very clear. He's made it very clear. This isn't about a church. This is about criminal activity.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good
That's right.
question. There's a couple good questions. What do you think about David live streaming from jail? What does that do for
Oh,
his case?
My gosh, that looks so bad for him. He's being his charges encompass manipulation of the church, of the people watching, and he can't help himself. He has no self-control. He's so dangerous. I mean, that if I was the prosecutor, look at this man. He's on trial. He's looking at 20 years times 10, right? And he can't stop. He's still live streaming. And then the other side is going to be the defense attorney. Well, he just loves his flock. He loves his people. He loves Jesus. This is what he does. He's a pastor at heart. And that's what happened. But it's very hard for me to believe that this is something that would be allowed. So I think that we're probably going to see the prosecution bring this up to the judge
At
some point.
Yeah. I was
Don't you
hoping
think?
so. I was hoping so because it's like that's like robbing a bank and then getting to keep the money, right? Or
Right.
that'd be like me committing a crime and then like, hey guys, we're gonna go ahead and still do a live stream from fucking jail. Like that wouldn't happen.
It's amazing.
That wouldn't.
It's-
No, wouldn't happen.
I know. I think either you or Uncle Jake told me, and I was like, what? Are you serious? No way. No way. That's
Yes.
really happening.
Yes, he live
It was
streamed.
happening.
He live streamed from jail. Yes.
Unbelievable.
Yep.
But he's now had his iPad taken away. Is that right? Do you know?
All I know is that he's had. All I know, he's not doing live streams from jail anymore.
Okay. Well, at least that ended. But that's something that the prosecution can use.
As his pattern of a behavior, like, hey,
Yes.
he's still doing it, Your Honor.
Right. This tells you that he does not care. He doesn't care about the law. He doesn't care about people. He just cares about himself. And this is it. This is what he's focused on. This is all he knows. And like you said, he doesn't have any other, associates outside of this cult. So that's what he engages in it, and he won't stop. And if a judge can't stop him, then what's next, people? I would just I would love to go to this trial live. We'll see. But I just think that the way that Ms. Cohen has been talking based upon the transcripts, she's really engrossed in this, which she should be at this point.
This is a
right?
big case.
It's a huge case. It's just like you referred to it as a landmark case. It is that. And she needs to know these facts inside and out. And just like you said, with all of those pieces of evidence, she needs to know it inside and out. And it takes a long time to do that. I can just tell you, because I've done tons and tons of trials, and and the best lawyer that wins are the ones that know the facts inside and out.
If David pleads, if they plea out right now, will the evidence stop dropping?
The evidence?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yes. So if he were to enter into a plea, say on Monday, yes, discovery just stops. They stop. Well, no, let me take that back. The evidence would stop as far as discovery going to his attorneys, but that doesn't stop the FBI in their investigation. Because if he did say, he wouldn't, but if he did plead on the 10 counts, he could do that. But remember, they're not done fully investigating, because there could be more stuff. So the investigation part on the FBI wouldn't stop, but the discovery would stop coming to the defense.
Right. The FBI would still have to continue their investigation to find out what crimes were continued to be like in the operation. Like the feds wouldn't stop. You're like, we're not going to stop our investigation. Why would we? They're going to do their
Exactly.
job. Yeah, they're going to keep going.
Right. Because there could be other victims, other crimes. And in the crimes that he's charged, it's 20 years.
Very serious.
So typically, even if he were to be charged with found guilty or pled to all 10, he could still only get up to 20. If
Judge-
he were to go to trial, the judge could stack them, right? It could be run, they could be run consecutively. That's a possibility.
That's the risk,
But
right? Taking it to
that's a risk for
yeah,
him.
taking it to trial. You're going to piss the judge off first of all, and you're going to piss the jury off even more.
Right. And they're all going to hear it. They're all going to hear it. Now, it's not televised, but there's going to be reporters. People are going to hear exactly what went on there, just like the Sean Combs trial. They're not in, there's reporters in there, and then they're going to come out, and then they're going to report on it. So the whole world is going to know what the evidence is.
It's worst case scenario for the cult right now. Personality wise, do you guys, and let's get the community involved, do we think David will play out? What do you think, Vanessa? You think David will play out?
I don't. I really don't think so. I think he's so arrogant. He thinks that he can convince anybody that he is being persecuted, and that's what it's all about. That's how I see it, just based upon everything I've seen so far. And that he's continuing to do this stuff, holding church, allegedly church, whatever they call it, while he's in jail. He thinks he's done nothing wrong. So, and he's hired 7 attorneys. You don't hire 7 attorneys to take a plea. I think this guy, he's got money to pay these attorneys. I think he's directing these attorneys to fight. And okay, think about this too, right? In his electronic diary, be controlling, manipulation, all that. He enjoys inflicting pain on people. And think about what you have to go through when you're in a trial, just like you brought it up to me in regard to the Ted Bundy trial. They enjoy hearing what they did. And so from that witness stand, when a victim is telling about what they did, he might actually enjoy that.
He might be sitting there in his mind getting off on it and be like, yep.
Yes. It's sick.
It is.
You know?
And during the Bundy trial, if you guys go back and actually watch some of the footage, in that case, the judge told Bundy, you better hurry the fuck up. He didn't say it like that, but he's all, you better cut the crap. I see what you're doing, and I don't like it.
Yeah.
I think David's a sadist. Yeah, Kim. He's sadistic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
he is.
To inflict what the type of pain that David did on people takes a special kind of idiot to do that, special kind of asshole.
Yes, for sure. And that's the irony. That kind of person, the whole world, you don't have to be a Christian, you don't have to be in any religion. You just don't expect that kind of person to be a pastor of a church.
No.
But we're seeing it in other cases too. So I guess it's just more common, it's just more, it's not that it's more prevalent now. I think it's always been there. It's just that now that we have equal access to be able to platform, like, we're on YouTube, we're on social media, and it's, people are not really paying attention to mainstream media as they did before. So now, we're not just focused on what they want us to focus on. We can focus on what we want to focus on, and we're going to talk about what we want to talk about, right? So that's what's going on, and that's why I know people are like, oh, there's so much going on now. I think it's always been there. It's just now there's just the ability to get at it
Equal
and
access.
to see it.
Yeah, equal access,
Yes.
like you said, right?
Yeah.
Equal access, yeah.
Yeah.
What will happen with Michelle? Judge denied her request. Oh, yeah, we could. Okay, so, yeah, let me wipe that under the rug real quick. Okay, so she got denied access to Kia, but the judge did grant her, from what I understand, access to GoFundMe. But if you guys haven't written your letters, I highly recommend that you do and send them up to the court. And write GoFundMe. Keep Michelle.
For sure.
Keep Michelle from getting a GoFundMe. That's how we started this. Even Kevin G, he was like, Rich, you always one up them every time. I'm like, yeah, you got to think above them. Right? Because these people think they've done nothing wrong. And now Michelle's, oh, I need to GoFundMe because I don't know how to get a fucking job.
And it's just like what you said before about, okay, I just got caught for stealing, but I'll get to keep the spoils. Well, that's what she was doing before. She was sucking money out of people, and now she's going to do it again by starting a GoFundMe. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense that she would be allowed to do that. So I don't understand why the judge hasn't required her as part of the condition of the bond to get a job.
Yeah. Britt, I
That
posted
I
it.
don't get.
Britt, I posted it on the channel today. I put the email, address it just like I did. All right. I put the format. All right. I put the format, do it exactly like that, and send it to the judge. Don't send it to the judge. There's an email address, the case manager. That's who you want to send it to. Don't send it to the judge. That's not a good idea. Send it to the case manager. That's her job.
The judge after.
What's that?
The judge will get it after.
Mhm.
He'll see the letters.
Can you explain that, Vanessa, how those actually go to the record if they're sent up that far?
Yeah. So if you're sending something in like that, they typically become part of that court file. So if, there's any letters that are coming in like that, the judge is going to review them, and it won't get posted like on Pacer.
Yeah.
But it does go into the record that they keep. I don't know if they do it digitally internally or if they have paper still, but yeah, they can't just throw it away. They would have to keep it.
See, so they would keep a record of it. If you're here in America,
Yeah.
you want to see Michelle, like, not get a GoFundMe. This is the route we have to go, you guys. This is the only way to do it. The bureaucratic mean, right? You have to think above these people. Sun Tzu, do the art of war. Get inside their head. What are they after? Money, right?
That is it.
They're after free
Right.
money from everybody else. Start cutting off those avenues of approach, man. We know this is all about money. We knew that. Money, women. You take the money, you lose the other two, basically.
Someone asked if Michelle could, while she's awaiting trial. She's not convicted yet, so yeah, she could. I mean, it would be something that would be a provision or a condition of her bond. I didn't see that. I was looking for that when she was initially indicted. It didn't say to specifically get a job, but pre-trial services, they're the ones that dictate what the conditions are. So a lot of things we can't see, and so I have no idea if she is on house arrest.
She is.
She has to stay.
She has an ankle monitor. We know that she's monitored. But the two co-defendants are both on ankle monitors. Michelle is on house arrest that we know.
Okay,
And
then
then
she can't get a job.
I would think, like, at some point the judge would maybe allow her, like, I'm going to allow you 8 hours of the day to go out
Right.
and look for a job from 8 to 5 business hours.
Right.
You go out and look for a job. Those are the hours that I will allow you out of the house. Like anybody else, you can leave from 8 to 5. What you do in that time, I want you to go look for a job and be productive.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Can judges do that?
Yeah.
See,
They can. They can. I mean, especially with somebody that she's just like David Taylor. It's just all been this cult. That would actually be a good thing for her,
Be productive, right?
Right. And it could start getting her out of that mindset. I saw earlier somebody had asked if they think that she's going to play the victim or
Yep.
I mean, that's a possibility. There was kind of that rumbling when one of the hearings where her attorney said that she's a victim too, but then there's other rumblings, people say, no, she's not going to turn on David Taylor. So we don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. Anything to support that Michelle's about to turn evidence on David? No, they're still pleading not guilty.
Right. Right. And you know what? Even if she did decide, I wonder if the government would be like, yeah, no. Yeah. Thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah, the
I
government
don't
just shut it down.
Yeah, they might. Because I think she's got 8, right, out of the 10?
Yeah.
Or 7, I can't.
Yeah, she's got
something like that.
7 out of 10 or something.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So they want her too.
Yeah. I think they started looking through phones and they found a lot of evidence that showed her involvement. And they said her and David were both involved intimately with the organization for years.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
they want her, man. Like you're saying.
Mhm.
Freeman, how do you feel about the case becoming a trafficking case with Lindsay Roberson?
I think that it's headed there. I mean, just like you and I were talking, you said that. I mean, why are they bringing in somebody that has a specialty in trafficking with Miss Roberson? So is it Lindsay Roberson?
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think that it has the earmarks of that. I think that, just the nature of the circumstances, this does look like, well, would any of us be surprised if that is something that comes out? I don't think so. So we just kind of have to wait, because like you and I have talked, and Uncle Jake and others, there could be a superseding indictment, next week or next month, or even right before trial.
Yeah.
And they would be going to trial on that. So it's a matter of, and we know there's a lot of information, just like you said, with all of those electronics that they have to go through. They're going to have to catalog this stuff. And then I really think that there is going to be a superseding indictment. I would not be surprised at all if there's some kind of trafficking charges that come.
Yes. 700 digital devices. Put that into reference. That's a computer. That's a phone.
Yeah.
That's a tablet. That's a laptop. That's a thumb drive. That is a fucking portable hard drive like this right here. Right?
Yeah. 700. And who knows how much is on there. Somebody asked if they could add RICO. Well, I wouldn't be surprised.
Like, would they do that at another trial possibly, not this one?
No, they would just do a superseding indictment, because it's so expensive to put on a trial.
Yeah.
There's so much time and effort and energy and expense, and it's a lot of work. And think about all the evidence. You don't want to, because there would be overlapping evidence. You want it one and done. So if there is a RICO, if there is a trafficking, they are going to add it in and do it once.
Superseding. Okay.
Yeah, a superseding indictment. Care of that.
Jeff Morton asked, can the feds wiretap the cult? Their phones?
Can they? Yeah, if they have probable cause to do that, they have to get that, signed off. But yeah, if they have evidence that there's some type of crimes going on there, just like any other case, you'd have to go to a judge and you have to list off all the probable cause as to why they need to tap that phone. And, if it's for a new crime, then they would have to list that. Or if it's, perhaps David E. Taylor is continuing to commit crimes, then that would be for that. So yeah, I mean, it's possible. I just don't know of anything that's going on.
Yeah, we don't. Well, this is still a very active investigation, y'all. 700 digital devices they have to go through.
Yeah. You know what? Did you see this? Let me find it, because there was something that the defense said about, and I was like, oh, he's talking about all of us, like anybody that is on there.
Oh yeah, he said it could be his detractors could use this evidence against him, because they were trying to silence that David was a piece of crap. Basically, they're like, oh, we better go ahead and hide this from the public, and the judge is like, no.
Yeah, he was after the government did the whole rendition of all the information on the record, right? It's already on the record, and the public's in there. And then he wants to seal it. And I was like, wait a minute, that should have been done in the beginning or stopped her or something, but he never did. And then after it's all been said, he says that the court is asking him about that. And he says, I'm concerned that the pastor's detractors could also use that information. Yes. So I guess we're all the pastor's detractors.
Yeah.
Yep. You're right.
And you know who the lawyer's getting all his information from is the cult.
Do I know that?
No, we do. That's what I'm saying. Like, we know that as a fact.
Right.
The lawyers are doing 20 hours a week on this case, 25 hours a week.
They're so behind.
Yeah. Y'all, we know this case inside and out. They should have hired us for their fucking defense or their team. They should have been like, hey, we need to hire these guys. They'll be our team right here.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting. I've never seen something like this, right? So
me either.
You were investigating that. You were talking about this, investigating this, posting about this for 5 years, and then the indictment comes. I've never seen anything like this before.
Not even with P. Diddy, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, the nature of it. Yeah, but who is talking about it like this? Not like this, where you were actively investigating and you were going around and, you're talking to the FBI, right? You were doing things.
I made calls to like county appraisals and stuff. I sent emails to the IRS. You know, I
Right.
sent letters to local FBI offices where the cult was operating, letting them know, hey, we know. Can you guys have all this work? Go do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Here it's on a platter. I mean, you must have given them something, and so, yeah, I mean, somebody asked, is this one of the bigger cult cases of the century? Well, from my experience, I mean, Nexium was a big one,
Yeah.
right?
Keith Rainier.
That was a huge one.
Mhm.
And there are these ones that are really big, Jim Jones, obviously. But this one has a different flavor. All cults are bad, and the
Yeah.
things that they do are really bad. But this one's really, really,
It's unique.
I can't
It's a
even give it
unique-
justice. It's
Yeah.
just really bad. It is.
Yeah. It's unique it's bad in a unique way.
Mm-hmm.
This man did this
Different.
it wasn't just the last 10, 15 years. Guys, this was the last 30 years this guy was doing this shit.
Mm-hmm.
This wasn't just the last
Yeah,
10
it was
years.
going on for so long. And the kinds of, I mean, think about it. Forced labor is what? It's slavery. It's slavery. So I haven't seen that. I mean, we've seen some people, mistreated or things like that. In the Keith Rainier one, they were branding them and all the psychological torment, all of those things. A lot of it is emotional and psychological. That's the huge components of it.
Yeah.
But this has all aspects. So this one I do think is going to, whether people know it or not, this is going to be one that goes down in the books, and I think is going to be, especially in the religious community, because of all the other exposures that are going on. There are things that are very similar in other alleged, I just call it, organizations that claim to be churches, because I don't like to call them churches because they're really not. But in those type of organizations, there are some similar things to this, maybe not to the same degree, but perhaps with David E. Taylor, it didn't start out as bad as it is now. And it was like, oh, I'll do this. And then, he gets away with it. And then he just rises it up. It's like turning it up a notch and seeing how much they can get away with. And I think that it culminated to where he's just outwardly doing whatever he wants, beating people, and just the arrogance and how he was talking in videos where he's supposedly preaching. Like that one that you shared with me where he's screaming and calling you names. He claims to be a pastor, and that's how he's talking. You know what I'm talking.
I sent that to his lawyers. I was like, hey, let me help you with your discovery there, buddy. Yeah, I sent it to his lawyers. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Here's your client. Hey, let me
They
cut down
ever
on your discovery.
Did they ever respond and
No, they
say
don't
thank you?
No. Mm-mm.
I mean, that's something that the government. If I was the government, I would be playing that. That would be always up, and I would just be like, "Hey, let's watch that." Throughout my in my club.
It's a true character reference.
Absolutely.
Yeah, character
Coming
reference.
straight from the top.
Coming straight from the
Yeah.
man. And then his cult members, they talk like that too.
Right, because he's taught him to do that, and he thinks it's okay. He thinks it's okay for a pastor to talk like that. How did we get there? That's how I look at it. How did we get there? Anybody with any semblance of just, common sense, you don't have to have been born in church or grown up in church or go to church. You know that a pastor doesn't talk like that. So how did we get there? Well, it started somewhere, and he got away with it. Yeah.
I think this type of language would only happen in the charismatics. You don't hear this in Catholicism, Christianity. This isn't Christianity, by the way.
Of course it's not. But no, of course you're not going to hear it with in a Catholic church. A lot of the problems, unfortunately, that we're seeing right now with the exposures are in the charismatics. Because there's no rules, they're non-denominational. They don't have any oversight. There's nobody monitoring them. It's just like the wild, wild west.
Good question here. Where was it? Right here. Thank you for your expertise. This is from Frank Bordnave. How long do you think the cult was monitored before they took action? Just your opinion.
Quite a long time, probably. I mean, based upon like our conversations that you and I have had, it sounds like they were probably monitoring them for years.
Yeah, that's what I think. So
Yeah.
that's what I think. They hit by the time we said in the first fraud reports, you guys, JMMI was already revoked by the IRS, and they were still promoting it. 2021, you guys, and they were still putting it up there like it was some great thing. But they were illegally
Wow.
taking in money. That's how we know this case in and out, right? The feds know more shit than we
Right.
do. That's for sure. They have the electronics, but
Right.
on the financial side, what we were looking at, the money laundering side of it, is they had been revoked. They put that name down there in Houston on that fucking sign, said JMMI. I'm like, okay, how does Harris County not see this? And I called and told them, I was like, have you guys done your background on that name that's on that building? They're like, well, they filled out some paperwork and they got their exemption. I'm like, okay, that's how it happens.
Yeah. And a lot of times that's what the feds focus on is, you know, the money thing. And then that's where they go. And then the businesses. And then isn't that when they rebranded and then it went to KOGGC?
Yeah. 2021 it rebranded, but KOGGC, what we know, 2015 the depositions were taken, okay? 2014, 2015, I believe, for 2015, 2016. 2014,
I think
2015.
2014, 2015. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. 2016, David and the cult, they pulled the exemption from the IRS for Kingdom of God Global Church, which is 811-95992. Okay. They pulled that right after the deposition. David knew shit was about to hit the fan. So he's like, I better change my name. That's where the money laundering started. You guys, and he's already had one name revoked, Resurrection Media Ministries. Whatever money he had there, I firmly believe he dumped into JMMI, and that's where the money laundering started through the tax exemptions. That's what we learned about it. Money laundering. But then buying a hotel down in Houston and gating it up, well, more sinister shit was happening. You go more black market, right? We were trying to figure out, Vanessa, where he's getting all the money from. He went black market.
Yeah.
He went underground. Like,
Wow.
mhm.
And we could see more money laundering charges too, because doesn't he only have one? I think he only has one.
I think money laundering is all encompassing. It's like they're going to look at the mortgage fraud, the bank accounts.
Yeah, but you could have multiple. I mean, the nice thing is if you stack it, the indictment. Let me just look real quick. I'm pretty sure it was just one. Yeah, the conspiracy to commit forced labor.
Money laundering.
Yeah, and then the forced labor. Okay, count 10. Yeah, money laundering conspiracy.
Okay.
Hey, we know that I'm pretty confident that there's going to be a superseding indictment. What's on there? I think it's going to look like the trafficking. You know, because that just seems like it's next.
Because when you look at trafficking too, right? And we've done the research here ourselves. We just looked it up. We're like, okay, how does our government classify human trafficking? What does it look like from the outside in? Well, there's a little campaign. It's called the Blue Campaign, and it's just how to recognize human trafficking. It's very cut and dry.
Mm-hmm.
It's very clear on what is it and how to identify it. And one of the big things, it was people being moved around. For me, it was the amount of cars to the amount of people in the operation. That was huge for me. The controlled movement. Yeah.
Right. Very much so. Does the person appear to? Yeah. Yeah, that's a good website.
Yep. And this is where we found our framework. We're like, okay, he's moving these people around now. He's got call centers set up. He's making money. He's not paying these people. Okay, this is forced labor, human trafficking, and money laundering.
Right. That has to be coming.
I'm pretty sure it's coming. I put my channel on it that it's going to be put on the table. They brought that little Lindsay Roberson in for a reason.
Oh yeah. So they have 3 government prosecutors, right? Altogether, there's three of them, I
think
believe.
there's actually 5. There's the main ones are Adriana Didell, which is the asset recovery specialist, Sarah Cohen, which is the main DA or the main prosecutor, and then Lindsay Roberson, who was just added on right before Thanksgiving. And then there's the 2 other like main DAs. There's 2 guys above the prosecutors and stuff that are their bosses.
Okay, but
Yeah.
they haven't gone on the. I haven't seen them on anything. No.
No, I haven't seen those guys on the record. Nope.
Okay.
Uh-uh.
Hey, Jeff Morton, he had a question. He said, "Do you think Rich will be subpoenaed?"
Be David's word.
So
I think
yeah,
David would be the
Go
one to
ahead.
subpoena me. Go ahead, Vanessa.
That's right. Yeah, that is who. So if Rich were subpoenaed, it would be because what are they going to do, right? What's their whole game? He's that David Taylor is being persecuted. Oh, Rich has it out for him. Rich has been doing this. Yeah, he's been investigating because he doesn't like the fact that, he saw something corrupt and something illegal and all these people getting, trampled on. But they'll twist it. That's what you do, right? That's what they would potentially do if they did. I mean, that's taking a chance because they don't know what you're going to say. And if they watch your videos, they would have some idea of what you might say.
I could get
And
up there
the fact.
I could get up there and take the 5th, be like, I plead the 5th.
Well, no, you wouldn't want to.
I don't know.
And if it was legitimate, if
Yeah.
there was something that
Yeah.
they were asking you, that obviously it would pertain to that. But the thing is, going back to remember what we talked about, knowing the facts backwards and forwards. You know the facts backwards and forwards. You know the facts better than his attorneys. The way I look at it, I wouldn't take that chance and have you up there because you could say something to the jury and you say something that, yeah, I was really, really concerned about this. And yeah, I didn't know any of these people, but I'm the type of person that I don't like seeing people get mistreated or trampled on. And so, yeah, I contacted the police because, see something, say something. That's the kind of person I am.
Yep.
So, that would be taking a chance. Now, with that being said, would they take that chance and try to pin it all on you and say, oh, this guy is the one that did this. This is the guy that started it. And he's just on this, this rampage against David Taylor. Well, that's you can make that argument, but obviously you have to have evidence of a crime for the government to actually prosecute. So it's not like you manufactured it in your basement.
Yeah, it's like,
So,
did I force David to hit his members? That
right.
Right. The government doesn't
Or
need
did
me.
you force? No, the government wouldn't. No, but did you force David to do any of those things? Have an armor bearer, have them, get the girls for him, have them take all the pills afterwards, all of the assaults, all of the abuse. Did you have anything to do that? No, you found out about it after it had already occurred.
Britt, I haven't committed any crimes. I would, it would honestly, it would be the defense's worst strategy. It would be like the all-time bonehead move plays in a federal trial. It really would, to bring a journalist up on the stand, because that's what we are. I'm a journalist. We're journalists here documenting this. That would be the dumbest thing for them to bring a journalist up on the stand who knows the operation inside and out and start questioning them.
Especially when you know the facts better than they do.
Yeah. I know addresses, names, phone numbers of most of these people. All up here.
You would be like, just ask me, I'll tell you.
Yeah, what do you guys want to know? How we found out about all this? Yeah, it was a cluster. I'm surprised it didn't get caught earlier.
Right. And the food stamp fraud. Yeah, I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of it too.
That's a problem. That's our tax
Very
money,
big
you guys. That's Vanessa's money, Britt Billings, Oren, Sydney, Michael. And they stole from, it would, have we all been victimized by David? Absolutely. That's how I pin it. When I was asked if I've ever been victimized directly by David, I was like, absolutely, and so have you. That was that was they talking on the other end, like, Mr. Holmes, have you ever been directly victimized? I was like, we all have. We're all being victimized by this guy right now. I was like, he's not paying
Right.
his taxes. He's laundering money. He's doing shady stuff behind his church. I was like, you're being victimized. Everybody's being victimized by these guys right now. And I was like, if you want to put it like that, I was like, yeah, we all are.
Yeah. Well, Uncle Jake doesn't pay taxes, but
Yeah.
the rest of us do.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't, like, the evidence that the government has. You guys, they're still probably panning through a lot of this stuff. You guys, 700 pieces of digital evidence. You know what that takes?
Months and months and months. I would be surprised if this went to trial even in 2027. Just they have to go through so much. And it doesn't look like to me that David is going to get out on bond.
Oh no, he's not getting out.
It just doesn't look like that's going to happen. So he's just going to sit there. And with that, he's going to want a trial sooner than later because he doesn't want to keep sitting there.
Yeah.
So
Can I say
Yeah.
something, Sydney, real quick? David coming after me legally, it's not illegal to have a brain. I'm sorry. Like, what's he going to come after me for? Having a brain and thinking things through and really doing the research and digging in deep and finding out what was going on? That's David has no brain. That's why he got caught. After the deposition, he thought he was the best, and he started documenting his crimes in his digital devices and gave the feds literally a blueprint. Everything we said was true. They already tried to sue me one time.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, Winners
Who
and
did?
King.
David
Yeah.
Miller?
Oh yeah, his lawyers, Winners and King, sent me a cease and desist. It's hanging on my wall behind me. Got two actually.
Oh, I think you did tell me that.
Yeah.
Yeah, she asked. That's why I was wondering if David's cult could come after Rich legally.
I told him.
Since he's allegedly about this stuff. Okay, so let me just comment on that. When people say the word allegedly, some people think that that's like a magic word and it'll get you out of jail or whatever. You don't have to say that. You know, if there's I'm assuming that cease and desist, they were saying that you were defaming or libel. Were they saying something like that, or what were they doing? Were they saying that you were
Oh, everything they're being accused of, they said I was accusing him of.
okay.
That's
Here's the thing.
serious. I'm dead serious.
A defense is, you know, if you're speaking the truth and you have personal knowledge and you have the facts that back it up, then you don't have to say allegedly. And you don't even have to say that. Like when I talk, I say, well, it's been claimed, or somebody asserts, or it's been purported. You don't have to use the word allegedly. Some people think you do, but you don't. If I really don't know something, like on my channel, if I'm talking about something, I'll say, well, so-and-so says this.
Yeah.
I don't know personally, but if I know personally, I don't say allegedly. I know personally, then I know. Okay, then it's this. And anybody that has personal knowledge, you can say that too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we have quite a bit of receipts. Well, that's the thing. I'll never give up sources, but I've talked to a lot of people. Some I've told you about, like Rick Frazier. Yes, I had a conversation with him twice, 3 times. One was an email, second time was through FaceTime, and the third time was telling him he didn't want to talk to me. So if they say, if they even want to bring Rick Frazier into it, be like, yeah, I can count on 3 fingers how many times I've talked to him.
Right.
Do you want to go there?
And they can't bring up that conversation anyhow, because like if they were to ask you
Hearsay.
about it,
Hearsay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it wouldn't be that. So the only thing that I could think of when you were talking about like why you would be subpoenaed is if they just try to go the route that you're being persecuted and that this guy has an agenda against him. But I mean, you could try to do that, but I think at the end of the day, considering all that you know and all that's coming out, I just don't think that that's the best thing to do. So,
They don't need me.
oh, another thing is they could subpoena you to keep you out of the courtroom.
Yeah, they definitely could. I could be one of the people, hey, this guy can't come in the court.
Right.
I could already be on
Yeah.
that list. Oh, you're this guy? Sorry, you have to sit in the overflow room. Okay, cool. Respect the decorum of the court, right? Well, that also means we get to sit in the overflow with the cult members.
Yeah, that will be interesting.
Mhm.
That will be very interesting
I'll take that bet.
because you know they'll be there.
I'll take that bet any fucking day of the week. Put me in the overflow room with him. You know how uncomfortable that will make him?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Let's see who's still standing, because this is going to be a long process. And how are they getting money? They still have the call center going, I suppose.
Yes, but I think all that money goes to an escrow account that the feds have.
Then how are they living?
I don't know. That's something we're all beating our heads on. How are they getting all this money? Because we talked retainers earlier. Let's talk money. How much have they spent? We talked numbers earlier, and I think we're pretty much on the money. About $700,000 in with David's attorneys.
Yes. Yep.
Give or
So
take.
where did that come from?
Yep.
Because their money, their cash, their accounts were forfeited.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So that remains a mystery. But if that's the case, and just like you and I were talking about, we're not even close to trial. If he's already spent almost 700, getting him to trial, it might take up to 2 million.
If it lasts till next year, let's say it does last till next year.
Yeah.
3 million.
That's, yeah. I mean, the longer it goes, the more money they have to spend. And think about it. He has 7 attorneys that he's paying.
Yeah.
7.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just gets very expensive.
There could be a secret GoFundMe somewhere. Yeah, it could be.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. Do you? I think we asked earlier. Do you think this case will be studied historically? Like, do you think we'll go back and they can pull case law from this eventually?
Yeah, I think that this one is one to watch. I think that it's going to be remembered. I think it's going to get, especially if there's more charges, so it's going to get even more attention. And you and I have talked about that this isn't just local, just it's national, that people are hearing about this everywhere. I do think that it's not only one to watch, but I think that people are going to have to take notice of it. And it's going to be there. We're going to be talking about it. And more so, I think that perhaps other people that do something similar, maybe not to the same extent, but something similar, other ministries, they might be looking at charges too.
I agree. Setting a framework almost.
That's how I see it. There's, like I said in the beginning, like this is a framework, and other ministries, they might have some of these similar activities that are going on, maybe not identical. And so if the government is going to go after them, well, then they need to start investigating other ministries as well. It can't just stop there. It can't stop there.
I agree. I firmly believe what a lot of these so-called ministries have been doing, quote unquote, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. They've been using these churches for decades to commit crimes, y'all. It's the new mob. I firmly believe there are churches that are like David's, ran just like a mob operation, y'all.
Yeah. And that's said about a lot of these ministries, that they talk about it as the Christian mafia.
Yeah,
so that's not surprising. Seen that as well. Somebody's asking, can he use church funds to pay for an attorney? So I don't know what the church has, because my understanding is when they were arrested, they seized the accounts. So, and then you just said, Rich, that any money that the cult is bringing in, that's going into an account that's been frozen as well. So just like Rich said, maybe there is some secret GoFundMe that we don't know about.
Well, that's coming from one of the chat members, like a secret GoFundMe. Maybe, because I was always under the impression, like, this is a big deal. Like, you can't use church funds to fight this case. No, you can't.
I know, it makes no sense. It makes no sense. But we don't know what they're doing. And I don't know how much control the FBI or the government has on this. But, some of these things, it'll come out later. Maybe we don't have the answers right now. At some point, we will, as they continue with these hearings, because I think that we are promise that because it's David Taylor who likes to appeal every order by the judge, right? So there's going to be motion after motion, and there's going to be transcript after transcript. And I think that there's one area where Ms. Cohen took liberty to just share some information that she really didn't need to. Let me see if I can find it real quick. And I found it was interesting. So I think that as they go along, I think that they're gonna just keep sharing information.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think that's
There
why I
was
think
something-
they're going to keep spoon feeding it to him nice and slow. And eventually the
Yeah.
lawyer's going to walk in and be like, you better take a plea deal. You take this to the jury, you're going to prison for the rest of your life.
Well, that's, if you take it to jury, any plea deals is off. Just like you were talking about, they have the cutoff for any plea deal. I think it's at the end of September, you said.
Yeah, September's
And
off.
they're pretty strict with that.
Mm-hmm.
They're really
nope.
pretty strict.
Yep. Like, you had your time. No,
So-
we're going to trial now. We're moving forward. All the evidence is going to come out at trial.
Right. So this is where at the end of this transcript, so this is the one from December 15th.
Yeah.
So it's at the end on page 63. And she says, and the government will add this, Your Honor. These properties, these lavish, extravagant properties were bought with money raised by the defendant's victims. So what you see here is the product and fruits of the defendant's forced labor. And then he says, all right, thank you very much. And it was just funny because that really didn't have anything to do with, like, they were talking about photos and stuff like that. And then she adds that. And I was like, she just added that in. So I found that interesting. She's just making her record. She's just letting the judge know. He's got it, though. At first with that initial hearing, remember the one that he did with Michelle Branham?
Yep.
I was like, this judge just doesn't get it. He's not understanding what is really involved here. And then obviously, as, like I said, the more hearings you have, the more information's coming out. I think that the judge is getting to know the case as well.
Yeah.
So
he's starting to see what this organization actually is.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was your initial reaction like when you found out he had a Hitler temper? Did you read that part?
Yes, I saw that, and I see you have it highlighted.
Yeah.
Yeah. He says that. How scary is that? A Hitler character. That's what he says, I have a temper, Hitler character. That's what he's calling.
David's your client, and you find this in his phone. Like, what's your initial reaction?
Oh my gosh. So take a plea.
That would be your take a deal.
Take a deal. I mean, yeah, but I'm not cut out for defense work. I'm really not. Like, prosecution was my thing. So, his attorneys, that's what they do, and they're going to get paid, right? Because that's what this is their job. So, if David's going to run the show, David's going to tell them what to do. At the end of the day, the attorneys have to make the strategy decisions. They have to lawyer, and David can't tell them everything to do. But I think that David is going to try to control his lawyers as much as possible, and trying to diminish these kind of things like Hitler character. I think that they're going to spin it and just say, oh, that's what he thought of himself, but that's not what he thinks about himself now. He's just being really, really raw and, just vulnerable, and he's just trying to better himself. So he's just admitting, just as anybody would do in a journal, to, repent and turn around. Yeah. So that's how I think that they're going to spin all that.
Do you want to go on for a little bit longer? I know you have,
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's, you tell me when you're ready to wrap up, and we'll wrap it up whenever I know you have a life outside of this and stuff. And it's thank you for coming on tonight, because this is like, we're all trying to make some sense of this case, I mean, what would you tell them?
I know.
As, even though it's like, about cults, what would you tell these members that are still there? Like, what would you tell them? And like, don't take this the wrong way, but as a woman, what would you tell these women in there that are still there, like worshiping this man, and like a word of advice? Like, what would you tell them?
I know, that is such a good question. Well, I mean, if I had a one-to-one with somebody, I would have to put it like that, because you can't talk to them all together. You'd have to separate them.
Right.
So if I had that opportunity and I had a one-to-one, I would just say, kind of similar to what I did when I was a child sex crimes prosecutor. You build a rapport, and that's what I would just say. Hey, tell me your story. Where did you grow up? I would just talk to them. What, how did you get into churches? What's your history? What did you like to do? Like, where did you go to school? And you just really build a rapport and just talk to them and just really hear their heart. And because they're not going to just talk to somebody that they don't trust, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody they trust is in that cult. So it would be a process. It really would. I mean, I'm not a counselor. I'm not, an expert area, but just based upon my experience, that's how I would handle it. And just have a conversation with them. Matter of fact, I do that now. Like, and it's not in the cult sense. I mean, it kind of is. Like, there's in other areas that I have my podcast where I talk to victims that are coming out of them that are calling me and talk to them. And some of them don't, they want to tell me their story, and I can tell they're still in it. Like they're like,
I know what you
is
mean.
this right? You know what I'm talking about?
I know
Probably
exactly
dealt
what you
with
mean
too.
because it's happened on this end. I know exactly what you're talking
Yep.
about, and I
Yeah.
compare it to like, how a geode has a hollow, like a hard outer shell. That's what I can compare it to, is like a geode that hasn't been cracked open yet.
Yeah.
I really do. They're
That's right.
like this cocoon, man, and they're just like, you got to break it open, and
Yeah.
then once you open it up, you get to the beautiful person on the inside. You get to all the crystals, right? Like, that's how I compare some of these people I've spoken to. They're like this granite outer shell, right? This halt that's just waiting to be cracked open, and like it is. And once they start talking, it really is like you hear these people, and they're just wonderful people.
Yeah, exactly. And you just have to give them the time to talk. I know people are joining here, so they're asking. I'm an attorney. My name is Vanessa Johnson, and Rich invited me here, so I'm here to answer questions. And I've talked about the case, but yeah, so I'm just trying to help navigate, just evaluating and analyzing the case. But that's exactly just what you said. You do it all the time with people contacting you. And I do it too. You just have to listen to them and hear what they have to say. And everybody is in various states of healing.
Yeah. The ones I
Some
think,
people are really raw.
yeah. Yep. And it's like, that's the point where you just need to shut your mouth and listen. It's where you turn the transmit off and the receive up, and you shut up and listen.
Right.
That's all they want.
Yeah,
That's
they
it.
do. And you just have to do it like that. Like Everett, and our friend Everett from Ohio for Freedom.
Yeah.
And he and I talked about that. It's like you just have to hear them out.
Yeah.
Because they're processing while they're talking to you. And each conversation that you have is one step closer, right? It might not be that it gets cracked open, just like you were talking about, the shell. Maybe they're going to talk to somebody else, and maybe there's, a nugget there that they're going to get closer towards freedom. But it's a process, because what got them into the cult was a process. It wasn't just one day.
Yeah.
It was indoctrination over time.
You have to undo that. Now we have to redo that indoctrination. We have to undo the indoctrination.
Yeah.
Like we always say, the frog in the pot of water, right? You turn it up nice and slow.
Yep.
Now guess what? We got to bring that frog back down from the boiling water and cool him off. It's like, and some of these people have been in there for decades. You're talking years.
Yeah. And so, like you said, he's had this for like 3 decades. So some of those people, the cult members that are in there now, they might have been in there for at least, from the beginning, or maybe even more than 5-10 years. That's a long time.
I'm sure there's there's some people in there who are veterans, probably 15 plus.
That's scary.
Mm-hmm.
Because think about that. So David and Michelle, they had nobody to tell the court that they had any other associates outside of it, that cult. So those people, like veterans, like you said, that are in their 15 years, they're probably, any of their associates are going to be in that cult.
Yes.
So it's very, very difficult.
That's what we talked about the other night. Some of these people are cut off from their families for good. Like some families have disowned them because of this whole operation.
Yeah. It's so sad.
Yeah. And we always said, like, once this evidence came out, I think we all knew it was going to be landmark. Like we were talking earlier about the government building a framework on how to prosecute a church without shutting it down, right? And I think they figured it out with this one. You pull all the key players out.
Yeah.
Because as far as I know, like the feds can't shut a church down. It's illegal. They can't. But if the church is on the up and
Well,
up, oh, go ahead.
if it, right, unless it's completely corrupt and there's all this, criminal activity, then they could, and they're not calling it a church because then it wouldn't be, right? It's a criminal enterprise. But I don't know clearly if they even tried to shut it down, because they still have the call centers, and maybe they have tried, and maybe, these call centers are not, they're located elsewhere.
Yeah.
And maybe it's like whack-a-mole. I'm not quite sure what that looks like right now. But yeah, I mean, if they've been going on for all these years, think about it. And David Taylor is telling them, hey, there's going to come a time, you guys get ready. You guys are the soldiers, and get ready. They're going to come in here. Then maybe they planned for this and they knew what to do.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
Standing orders, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not surprised. And, the fact that they're making the video of the persecution, I mean, it's just laughable. They really believe this, that he's being persecuted for Christ.
Here's a good question. This is from Doc. That's why I call him Doc. How does the prosecution frame their argument to quickly squash an attempt from the defense that this was ultimately volunteer activity and that coercion is not a significant factor? Yeah, that's a good one, Doc.
Yeah, and that's a factual issue, and it goes to the evidence and the credibility of it. So all of those text messages, right? We don't know what the witnesses and the victims are saying yet, because we don't have any of their statements, but just look at what's been disclosed so far. So those text messages, him screaming at people saying that if you don't get your numbers up, and you're going to sleep in the garage, and you're going to be out on the street. So that doesn't sound like on the other end, the person that's being yelled at is voluntarily wanting to do this. They would need, so in the indictment, there's a victim attached to each of those counts, right?
Yep.
So those counts, that's that victim. So that victim would have to say, oh yeah, it was voluntary. That's not going to happen. That's why the victim is saying, no, it wasn't voluntary. This is what happened to me. Those victims they're the evidence. Their testimony is the evidence, and they are going to prove in court when they testify what happened to them. So that's the evidence that the government has. And then what corroborates it are the text messages, which are the words coming out of David Taylor's mouth that even supports it and corroborates what the witnesses are going to be saying. So an argument, and that is what the defense has been arguing too. So that's a good question in that regard, because they're saying, oh, minimizing it, and they knew that if they were going to be punished and part of this church, that there would be discipline, and that's all it is. Well, that's twisting it and minimizing it. So let's just wait for those victims to get on the stand and tell us exactly what happened. And I think that's going to quash that argument, so to speak.
Like,
and it's up to the jury to decide.
Like Judge Altman said in the beginning, like, you're going to have the defense is going to have your witnesses, and the prosecution is going to have theirs. And that's not uncommon in these types of cases. One story is going to have a side, and then another person is going to have a story. And that it's very typical in these cases for this to happen, you guys.
Yep.
That's
how it works.
Yep. And typically,
sorry, go ahead.
I'm going to guess in this situation, when you have evidence like this outweighing with the witnesses coming to the stand and saying, yes, this is how it happened.
Yeah.
It's not going to
and well. Think about it, when the witnesses come in and the victim, they're testifying in front of the jury. The jury is the one that watches how they're testifying, what they're testifying to. They're assessing the credibility, and there's an instruction by the judge that comes when they conclude the trial, and the judge will tell them, you are the fact finders. You're the ones that are weighing the evidence. You don't have to believe a witness. You can believe a witness. You can, some of the things they say, all of the things they say, or nothing they say. You're the ones that have to figure out who you deem credible and which evidence you're going to discard or put weight on or accept or reject. So it's up to the jury. The judge is actually, in this case, he's really the gatekeeper. So he's going to be doing all the motions and all that stuff. But ultimately, this will be in front of a jury.
Yeah. All these text messages and stuff, all the videos, all the pictures that David collected of all these naked women. I don't know. Will they put those types of pictures in front of the jury, Vanessa?
Yeah. I mean, they
can.
I think it's part of it.
They can?
Yeah.
It's evidence. I see why not.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. They can. And remember, this is not going to be aired. The media can't go in. And so when they put the pictures up, they will have it at the tables. It'll be at the government's desk. It'll be at the defense, their table, and then it'll be with the witness. And then once they enter that into evidence, then it goes to the jury. So the jury can see it. So they will, I mean, they've talked about those pictures and all of those things. That's part of it. So I anticipate that they're probably going to be using all that evidence.
I would too.
Yeah.
That's also going to show his pattern of behavior and his compulsion and all the reason why he belongs right where he is.
Yeah. Now, part of that, remember, that was in the detainment hearing, and they were arguing that he was a danger and, he couldn't control himself with his sexual desires and all that. So that could be for that, but I guess we'll have to see. I mean, they did use it for that, but I could see them using it at trial too. Certainly the text messages, all of those text messages, where he's telling them that if they don't get their numbers up, all these things are going to happen. And then there is the physical abuse, but it's not just that. It's the emotional component, which Ms. Cohen has been talking about over and over again. And then the defense attorney's trying to argue, oh, well, there wasn't any physical abuse that they didn't agree to, trying to allege that they agreed to the physical abuse as if it was discipline, that this is part of what the church was that they agreed to. But no, remember, it's a jury. Anybody's going to see right through this.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I'm guessing the jury starts seeing this and that this guy's claiming to be a pastor. Oh, they're just going to be pissed. Every one of them.
Yeah.
I really don't think it really matters at this point for David. The jury's going to be pissed when they see this. They're going to be like, you were doing this and you're a pastor of a church? No. Guilty.
Right.
Guilty. You're guilty.
Right. They're going to be absolutely appalled.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's what I think.
That is the effect.
Imagine what if it's like a jury of mostly women, like middle-aged women?
Right. Yeah. I mean, we'll have to see what happens. It's astounding because the facts are they're just in your face, crazy,
overwhelming.
And would expect, well, couldn't you consider a plea? But I just don't think that this guy would even consider it.
Yeah, I don't think anyone signed up for the abuse. Everybody went there to serve a purpose for God. There was no fucking written clause saying, oh, you can go ahead and beat the shit out of me if I don't make money for you. I'm pretty sure there wasn't a fucking written document or a signature or somewhere where he signed up for that.
And we wouldn't be here right now with 8 victims if that was the case. There's 8 victims, one for each indictment. Mm-hmm. They referenced V1, victim 1 through victim 8. So there's 8.
Yeah, and could the material? I think it could. Doc, could the material, like all the images, be used to show like the depraved character? Like this is the type of person that was running this church.
Oh, of course, that's the whole. That's the premise. This man over here claims to be a pastor, and if you know what a pastor means, you talk about what is a pastor to you. Well, to me, this is what a pastor is. But what this case is going to show you is that this is what this person was engaged in. Does that resemble a pastor? I mean, that's the type of argument I would make.
Ooh.
That is not a pastor, folks.
Yeah. What is okay?
That's
so
criminal.
there's. What do you think about the 2 that are running the show right now? Joseph and Kia. So Joseph's still there and Kia.
And so I've been waiting to see if they were going to be indicted, particularly Joseph, just everything that I've heard about him. I think I've just heard more about him than her. So I think that's a possibility, right?
I
That
think
we could see.
maybe
Yeah.
that will be part of the superseding indictment.
Perhaps, because, on that, we did see somebody that was charged, Kathleen,
Kathleen, yeah.
on the superseding indictment. So she has been charged. Now she's out on bond, but I mean, she
oth-
has been charged.
The other
We
two,
could see. Yeah.
okay, so the other two could get indicted too. The ones that are up there running the scam now.
Yes.
I know they're going to find stuff in their phones.
Yeah.
This case is just getting too overloaded. They're going to have to do Joseph and Kia on a separate case, like 109,000 pieces of evidence just for these two idiots, Joseph and or Michelle and David and Kathleen.
But maybe yeah, I can't say, that would be too much speculation.
Yeah.
I would think that, yeah, I can't tell. I mean, I really thought it would be earlier by now that they would have indicted at least Joseph, but
Yeah.
we don't know what's going on in the background. So
700 devices, y'all. Just think about that.
yeah,
That's a lot. That's more like a corporate operation. 700 devices. We talked about that earlier. Feds have a lot of work to do still.
yeah, they have a lot to go through.
Yeah.
And so his attorneys, like the one who said he's only spending about 20, 25 hours a week that he can devote to the case. Well, I promise you, the government is spending a lot of time, and this might be all that they're working on right now. They have to devote.
I often wonder if this is the only thing that Sarah Cohen is working on right now. Like, what if this
Could
is,
be.
what if this is her, like, I always said in the beginning, like, whoever breaks this case, it will be monumental for them, and it will be a huge promotion. It will be a huge notch on their resume.
Oh yeah.
Huge.
Yeah. I would say so.
Yeah, all the all the people who did the investigating in this and did the work to figure it out. Guess what? There's going to be some big promotions in this. I guarantee that at the upper levels in the feds and the agencies, there's going to be some promotions that hasn't already happened.
They have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not even close to being done.
Heidi brings up a good point. What if Joseph's playing in the background, talking to the prosecutor?
That's a great question. I was thinking that when I was talking. I'm like, we don't know what's going on, and I was thinking that. And just to say that maybe Joseph is working with the government. Who knows? We just don't know. Sometimes you think, oh, that would never happen, and then it happens. So it's very speculative. We don't know.
What if?
And
though, right?
Kia too. Right?
Yeah. What if Kia could? What if Kia's in playing the game? We don't know that.
Right.
But no, Kia's in. I know Kia's in it to win it.
Yeah.
That would be epic though, right, Kim? If Joseph was the one that was like the final torpedo to see David's ship. Or Tony.
Yeah.
You know?
Serve just absolutely. And yeah, and it sounds like, we know David is the big bad guy, the ringleader, but there's other bad guys as well.
Yeah.
And so
this is a bigger operation than we know about, I think. David was just, I don't know. He was just there in the middleman, I think. There's something bigger behind David, I think.
Yeah, with other ministries, you mean,
Yeah.
or even without?
Yeah, I think David could have some ties to some other people that we might not know about.
That would be interesting if that comes out in this.
Yeah.
Like through their discovery, the investigation that the FBI is doing. That would be very interesting. I didn't even think about that.
Right. Find some other key players.
Mm-hmm.
I think that could be possible.
So my husband just walked in. So does anybody have any other questions that I can answer?
Family time.
Okay. Did this help? I hope it did.
Yes, it did. Big time. Yeah. Everybody, we good? Yeah, I think everybody got a lot of questions answered just now.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, as this moves forward, we can always do it again. And thank you again for all your hard work.
No, I appreciate you, Vanessa. Appreciate you coming.
All right. Have a good weekend.
All right. Have a good night. Tell your husband hello from us. Bye.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Vanessa. Appreciate you coming on tonight. Tell your husband hello. Thank you for giving your time to us this evening. So yeah, that was kind of a case analysis with Vanessa Johnson. You guys check her channel out. Yeah, thank you, Vanessa, for speaking with us tonight. Really appreciate it. Yeah, and that's as long as I was going to go tonight, as long as Vanessa went with us, because yeah, I got stuff to do this weekend, and yeah, yeah, no, thank you, Vanessa. Yeah, thank you. It is. It's good to have like another point of view from an attorney, and you know, basically saying that he's cooked, and this is worst case scenario for the defense. So I think we all kind of knew when this information came out, David was cooked. We saw this, we're like, oh, he's never getting out of jail. Yeah, he ain't ever getting out of jail. I don't think. Not with this. But y'all have a good weekend, man. I'll catch you guys on the next stream. I don't think I'm going to do any streams next week because Sunday, not this coming Sunday, the following Sunday, we're going to do another live interview with another survivor of this cult that's never been on the channel. So we'll do that following Sunday. I don't think I'm going to stream next week. I'm pretty tired, man. I want to chill out and relax. I got some stuff to do at home. So unless there's some kind of big break in the case, but other than that, I don't think I'm going to stream next week. So that being said, man, y'all have a good week. Like I said, maybe I'll do posts, but as far as streaming, maybe a couple video uploads, but I don't think I want to stream next week. I really don't. Like I said, unless there's big changes, okay? But for the most part, y'all have a good week, man. I'm always here. You guys know how to get a hold of me, email, text, whatever, man. If there's any members that still need help out there, we are here to help you. That was always the goal, to get you guys out. Always the goal. It was always the goal to get you guys out back to your families because you belong to somebody, okay? Always our goal here. We are here to help you. We might seem like assholes, but we are here to listen. Always. So y'all have a good weekend, man. Catch you on the next